Hey guys, Corey Sorgas here for Slap News, and I just want to jump on here and do a recap of Power Slap Road to the Title, Episode 7. What an insane episode. By far the best episode yet that we have seen from Power Slap. I think if they would have dropped an episode like this at Episode 1, we would be much more further along. I think everything in this episode was full and well-rounded. All the drama in the house got even crazier when Amir Aberdeen showed up into the actual house. Apparently, a lot of the footage was actually cut out of it. Apparently, him and KO Chris, within the first 5 minutes of him arriving at the actual house, got into beef, but we didn't see it in the actual episode itself. However, good fun. Obviously, we've seen Chris Thomas and Slap Jesus headbutt head-to-head. As some people know, Amir and Slap Jesus are friends outside of the Power Slap house, so you can see that even fueling KO Chris even more. But you know what? Let's talk about the 4 matches that were on the card, because 3 of them had title implications, and the 4th one that we didn't even know also, where the victor came out and got a chance at the actual title match. To start off the entire episode, we had Reese Archer up against Azael Rodriguez, and there was a ton of smack being talked about this one. Both of them took to social media. This was a personal fight for both of them. Both of them had a personal vendetta against each other, and it was going to be fireworks as it took place. Azael won the coin toss and went straight at it. Was a great match, back and forth, went to a decisive decision. There was one clubbing foul by Reese, which ultimately would have made the difference in the actual match itself when it came down to the judges' scorecard. But in the end, it was a great battle through and through. It was to prove who the real 185er was within the category, and the opportunity to go up against John Davis on the March 11th live event, which I think will be incredible. So spoiler alert for everybody, if you did not watch the episode, I'm going to be talking about all of the outcomes and the results of the actual fights itself. So if you don't want it to be spoiled, please don't continue watching the video. Go watch it and come back. But Azael Rodriguez pulled out the victory. It was absolutely cool to see that cat get it. He talked a lot of smack. A lot of people are talking negatively about him being a drunk inside of the actual house. But hey, he's backing it up. If you look, he's got a chin of steel, and he's throwing his strikes, and things are happening. He's trying to keep it as clean as absolutely possible, which I think is awesome. He's got a real good shot. John Davis hasn't been defeated, but I don't think he's fought someone like Azael. So I think it's going to be a battle that goes back and forth going into that March 11th live event. It was great to see those cats. I'm sure Azael and Reese will meet again in the future. I don't think that feud is over. I think both people have a tremendous opportunity in the sport going forward, and I think that's just the first of a couple of slap-offs that we will see between both of these fighters. Up next, we had Jules Scott and Jesus Gaspar. I'll be honest, this match I wasn't all that excited about going into it. Wasn't really sure where it was going to fit. With the outcome, we seen what actually happened and what it actually meant. Jules Scott was a highly ranked contender within the 170 category going into this match. Has had some foul issues the entire time, had a flinching issue in one of his previous matches. And so, looking at where Jewel was at, a very clean technique, at least a very structured technique, but he seems to be off the mark a little bit in regards to some of that. We've seen some of the vocal aspect kind of going back and forth in between, and he thought he got, clubbed and hit high a couple times during that match as well. But Jesus Gaspar, incredibly tough. You see him eat a lot of those shots and be able to continue to power through. Once again, fouls playing a factor in the outcome of this actual match as well. Great seeing both those warriors up there. And then surprisingly, Jesus Gaspar gets a title match in the March 11th main event against Chris Thomas. I didn't see that coming. I didn't think that was gonna lead, in that direction, and Jesus being able to get there. He's kind of been played off as the Southern California kid, heartbreak girlfriend cheated on him, so he ended up turning to Power Slap so he can take out his anger. And look at him now, going for that first ever title against KO Chris. KO Chris undefeated, knocking people out left, right, and center. So we're going to see, will Jesus Gaspar's chin hold up to what KO Chris will be delivering? We will have to see come that March 11th event. But that actually turned out to be a better fight than I thought it was going to be. More entertaining, obviously going the distance in that one as well. So I thought that was, a really good fight to be able to see, and didn't believe that it was going to lead to a title match, but it did. Up next we had Vern Cathy versus Amir. He came into the match, came in late to the house. Looks like he was literally there 1 to 2 days before the actual fight itself. Didn't have a lot of time to actually even get into, the training center, the PI, and be able to even train with some of the coaches. They said the open gym session was actually passed by the time he actually got there. So he was going in there cold turkey. Vern won the coin toss in that one, and it proved to be too much. Vern is an incredible striker, great form. What I actually thought was cool was something that me and Ryan Phillips talked about on a live stream before, was actually implementing replay in regards to seeing about fouls and stuff like that. And so they actually went to replay on that particular call. They actually deemed that there was no foul for stepping, which was good that they were able to clarify that up and keep it clean. Otherwise, if it would have been, Vern would have had, a no contest by disqualification, but that wasn't the case. Clean blow, one shot by Vern, lights out by Amir, took his chin to the moon and back. And, obviously it was a devastating blow, which sets him up for the most anticipated match of that live stream. So Vern Cathy is going up against AJ Hints for that light heavyweight belt on March 11th, which is streaming free on Rumble for anybody who wants to tune on in regards to that. They've changed it from a pay-per-view to a free live event on Rumble, so take advantage of it. It's going to be highly anticipated. All of these 4 title matches are going to be exciting across the board. The best of the best, the creme de la creme, has risen to the top in regards to Power Slap right now, and you are going to see those first ever title matches crowned. Power Slap 1, a lot of people I think are sleeping on it. You had UFC 1, the same type of thing, didn't have as much notoriety as the number cars continue to go. So I think a lot of people are sleeping on number 1. So make sure you watch that live so that you can say that you watched it, and you'll remember where you are when this sport continues to evolve in 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years down the road, and they get up in regards to the numbered events, number 50, number 100. You'll be able to look back and say that you watched the very first one, and you will be able to remember what happened in these actual title fights. And a lot of the OG MMA fighters from the UFC, I think you will see these fighters be regarded in that same light. And then last but not least, the 4th fight of the night paired up KO Chris versus Slap Jesus Mike Smith. We've seen them get into it in the house. They seem to build that animosity. I don't think that they were playing around. I think there was some personal nature behind that. I think both of them have, those electric personalities and are very, very self-fulfilling. Obviously, KO Chris talked about his family and making sure that he put a positive light in regards for his children on how you should represent yourself and not let people walk all over you. Mike Smith, just a crazy guy from Lake Tahoe, has been in, multiple controversies throughout the entire show. And, is very self-fulfilling about himself. And I think that's great, obviously, to have that confidence as a fighter. And they went, mano a mano. They went head-to-head, toe-to-toe, for that opportunity to be able to move on for a title match. In the end, KO Chris did come out victorious in it. Through and through, these were 4 of the absolute, I would say, top 8 fights in the entire show. Every single fight was great. And as we alluded to earlier, the Jesus Gaspar will go up against KO Chris in that division at 170. There was some talk on After Slap that KO Chris used to walk around 240 and was a heavyweight. I'm not sure if I can confirm that or not, if that's to be the case. But obviously, he's bringing heavyweight knockout power. He's knocking out everybody in his tracks. It's interesting the way that Power Slap and the guys edited the actual footage. From the very first episode, we knew that KO Chris and Slap Jesus were going to match up against each other. And we also seen, within that clip that KO Chris, was able to knock down Slap Jesus. We didn't know that was going to be the end of the fight, but they kind of gave away the outcome of that match all the way back to the very first episode by clipping that actual strike from KO Chris on Slap Jesus. So obviously we've seen the outcome came very true to everything that we thought that we thought we knew from that first episode. But things have continued to evolve. Dana White took to After Slap and announced that he is looking right now for season 2 and season 3 broadcaster to be able to continue this and the success of The Ultimate Fighter, and allowing people the opportunity to get up close and personal and learn the backstories of these fighters. I think it's incredibly important. If they would have just put on a live event, nobody would know who these athletes are. Nobody would get into their corner, be able to back them all the way, going into this live event. Now, all of these athletes have newfound fan bases. They want to root for people. Now they have those antagonists. They have those heroes. They're building the storylines, which builds the sport, which builds the connectivity and the relationship that fans have with these athletes, which is only going to continue to grow the more that they showcase their athletes in this light. Dana White said that it cost $10 million to produce these 7 episodes, which I honestly believe that to be the actual case. I couldn't imagine, actually owning that house that the athletes were in, watching back the footage and seeing all these guys in the house, all their shenanigans that took place. Would just be crazy to look back and actually think oh, so-and-so pissed in that bed, or all the fights that took place within your own personal domain. So I'm sure they got compensated well. I'm sure the house was probably destroyed, doors ripped off, doors being put into one particular room. So, I'm sure they got compensated quite well, but I highly doubt they'll be back in that same residence next year after seeing what actually took place. But, obviously the UFC knows what they're doing. They've done this time and time again with the Ultimate Fighter. So I'm sure they'll figure it out and be able to do it. It was just quite interesting to see how restrictive they were for all these fighters. Take away their phones, their computers. They weren't allowed to even watch TV. Apparently there was only one clock in the entire house, and they were just left there, to be with each other. And with all that testosterone going around, it's not surprising that they got into, fights and tension, animosity, being away from their friends, their family, their significant others, their children. All that stuff was going to weigh on the fighters, and time again, when people start poking the bear, things are going to spill over. Debatable if that's good for the sport or not. A lot of the haters talk about, some of the best fights on the show were outside of the actual stage and in the house. So, I don't necessarily agree with that, but it was interesting to see how they portrayed this, and maybe it worked for some of the sponsors and stuff like that. But I think you'll probably see some of that get cleaned up. I don't think you'll see the drunkenness be such a big highlight of future shows in season 2 and 3. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just think you're going to see more and more true athletes come in, athletes from wrestling backgrounds, athletes, from collegiate sports, whether it be shot put or stuff like that, MMA background, boxing, Muay Thai. There's one of the coolest things about this sport is that you can come from a wide, diverse background into it. I think you would actually, and there's one slap fighter from Slap Fight Championship by White Simba, who is a professional tennis player. And you think that same motion from tennis coming into a slap. And so it's great to see that you can have a wide range of racket sport athletes that could potentially come in here. And the thing is, these types of athletes as well have been used to actually training under proper, systems. MMA fighters coming into it as well, used to fight training camps and the dedication that it takes, the time, energy, efforts. Some of these fighters don't cut weight at all. Some of these fighters are cutting weight. Some of these fighters are definitely, carrying around more body fat than a lot of the MMA counterparts would. And so as these athletes continue to take the sport of slap fighting more seriously, the better shape that they get in, you'll be able to drop down in weight classes, but then still remain in regards to the power that they actually bring with it. Things will become more and more competitive. Overall, I think it's been an incredible 7 episodes across the board, and I'm absolutely elated to be going to Vegas myself for the actual live event. Very much looking forward to that. I think, with all the haters, the negative press that's been going around, I think people are sleeping on this sport. I think the sport is going to continue to grow. I think fans love it. I think it's, primed for the way that consumers consume content today. I think people want instant gratification. When they highlight it on TikTok, it's going viral. It's blowing up millions of actual views for all these highlights, because it's the way consumers are, attention spans of people shortening, every single day. You see the blow, you see the knockout, within 15, 20 seconds, you get that gratification that you want to actually see. And that's kind of the impetus for, the short version of it allows you then to follow the sport. Then you click onto the website, you click onto the YouTube channel, you start watching more long form, actual content. If you actually make it over to Rumble, be able to watch full episodes and all that stuff. The way the sport is growing right now, I think it's going leaps and bounds. Will it ever be absolutely full mainstream? I don't know about that. It can stay as an underground sport, and I think that's perfectly fine. It can be a very successful niche sport that has a captive audience, that promotes itself through social media, puts on pay-per-view events, and continues to grow time after time. We are going to see over time the evolution of it, and I've actually heard already that the UFC has increased the actual pay for these fighters for the actual main live event. By two, 3 times what they originally promised these fighters. So you're already seeing it in regards to the sponsorship and seeing the UFC, Dana White, and those guys actually backing their fighters. I don't know why people hate on Dana White as much as they do. A lot of fighters say that Dana doesn't take care of his fighters. But from everything that I'm seeing in regards to Power Slap, yes, the wages, were fair and adequate. These people signed up for it. No one was holding a gun to their head. They wanted to go do it. And actually talking to a lot of the fighters, they said they would have done it for free just because they're fighters, at heart, and the opportunity to be able to get in front of new people, and the production quality and value that was brought by the UFC, is truly second to none. A lot of these fighters, whether they come from amateur or professional boxing or MMA backgrounds, never had the attention that they are getting now. So I think that's good for all the stock all around. But, tune in. Rumble on March 11th. The live event is going to be absolute fire. You're going to want to make sure that you catch that. It's free on Rumble. Very good move by the UFC, Dana White, to be able to change from a pay-per-view to a free event to continue to help the actual growth of the sport. So like I said, head over to Rumble. Would love to hear your feedback and what you thought of episode 7, what you think about the upcoming main event and the fights there. I'm going to do a separate video where I'm going to talk about the actual matchups and the breakdown for that March 11th event. So if you can, give me a like, definitely leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for Slap News. We're going to bring you more and more content on a regular basis. I appreciate you all. If you have any questions, if there's anything that you want me to cover on the channel, either comment below or send me a direct message on Instagram. I'm getting back to everybody. Hope you have a fantastic day. Take care, guys.